Hello and welcome to today's video. So today what we're going to do is continue our exploration of Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings. And like I described in the first video that started this series, what we're going to do is just take a chapter at a time. I'm just going to introduce a couple of principles that are broadly applicable to life, and we're going to talk about what they mean, and then I'll let you go. One of the beautiful things about Musashi's book is that it's broadly applicable to life. So today, looking at the Earth chapter, we're going to go over two principles that I selected from that text. So towards the end of the Earth chapter, Musashi gets to talking about how he feels that soldiers should not have a preference for certain types of weapons. And he goes into some detail about that. What he's getting at, essentially, is that if we have a preference for something very specific, it can have a psychological effect on us. So in a conflict situation, what he's talking about is if someone feels like they have to have a weapon that's a certain length, or something similar, and then they have to fight with something different, it causes a psychological effect where they lose confidence. So if we want to take that idea and apply it just broadly to life, let's say I'm going to use something that has nothing to do with conflict. I like to cook. I love cooking with friends. It's just a fun thing. I like the social aspect of it. So if I at my house have this particular brand or a particular type of skillet or cooking utensil that I really like, if my preference for that is so strong that when I go to someone else's house to cook and they don't have that, if I'm fixated on that brand or whatever it is, it can have a deleterious effect on my ability to cook. It can also make me a poor guest because I might, if I complain about their stuff, that's obviously not going to go anywhere. The preference thing I think can be kind of tricky because it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a preference for a certain brand of this or that. It just means that you don't want that preference to be so strong that it affects what you do when you don't have that. You don't want it to affect your confidence. And there's a lot of different things we could apply that to. I picked cooking just because it's kind of benign, but almost any subject you could think of, if you feel really strongly like you have to have a certain this or that to perform, and then when you can't have it, you're doing, on top of doing whatever you're doing, you're also dealing with the psychological aspect of not having what you want. So in that context, preferences can be detrimental. The second principle that I'm going to discuss today is Musashi introduces the concept of rhythm. Now, different translations use different words. Obviously, I have 5 different translations of this book. Rhythm is just one that I have a preference for, so there you go. Some authors use cadence. I've seen tempo. They're all fine. I like rhythm. When he discusses rhythm, what Musashi is getting at is that any situation we get into as humans has a certain rhythm to it. I think understanding this is very important because a lot of times when people are unhappy with situations, it's because they are out of rhythm with the situation that they're in. So I'm going to use the example of building a business. A lot of different things that I could use, but again, I feel like building a business is a fairly benign subject, so I'm going to use that for today's talk. There is a very particular rhythm to building a business. Okay, there's obviously a lot of things that go into starting a business as far as understanding your market, clients, blah, blah, blah. There's so many things about starting a business that we could talk about that have nothing to do with rhythm, so I'm not going to go into a lot of depth there. Just understand there's a lot that goes into starting a business, even if it's a very simple business. And then there's the whole marketing thing. Building a business, establishing a business, creating a business has a completely different rhythm to running an established business. These are different things. I guess real quick, I'll just throw in the example of fitness. I've seen this a lot. There is a real specific rhythm, for example, to being a football player. Let's say like a high school football player. That has a very specific rhythm to it, where there's a lot of dedication, there's a lot of focus. A lot of athletes give up a lot of social things because they have practice and games and that sort of thing. And then once they're done with that part of their life, whether it's because they go on to college or because they get injured or whatever it is, or they just get tired of it, they go into a different phase of their life, and there's a different rhythm to that. So they relate fitness so strongly to that experience, they have a hard time transitioning to just being a person who wants to be in shape. Those are very different rhythms. That should be a pretty obvious thing, but I don't think people think of it like this. Wrapping that up, understanding the rhythm you're in can do a lot to improve any situation that you're dealing with. So just give it some thought. That's it for today's talk. I am out of words. Go read a book.